Everyone, I am Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted, the video interview series that aims to connect you with the top minds in the industry. Today, I have Ryan Driscoll, Vice President of Marketing with GPS Insight. Ryan, thanks for joining us. How is your work from home transition going? How are you still supporting your customers? What's new out there?
It's going really well. Luckily, we're a software company, so we adjusted to working remotely quite easily. You get a little bit stir crazy here and there, but luckily we can get outside, get some fresh air, and keep our sanity as best we can.
For sure. We're
also supporting our customers just as we always have. We're still 24/7, 365 with our support. Our account managers are still working full time. We haven't had to do any layoffs. All of our employees are still working full time and supporting our customers to the best of their abilities.
Excellent. So, same here on this side. I appreciate you letting me add to your very busy video conference schedule, as I'm sure everyone is getting used to this.
Yeah, it's like every single meeting is video now. It's interesting and it's fun, and it kind of ensures that we still get that connection that we need, right?
Right. No, for sure. I missed the travel, so I wanted to call my friends and have a talk. So today we're talking about reducing expenses, something that all fleets probably are looking at right now, streamlining operations, and using the data that's coming off their equipment to do so. So let me throw out our first question here. So in your experience on the data side, supporting your customers, looking at data, what are the areas most ripe for streamlining and reducing fleet expenses?
So the lowest hanging fruit for fleets to reduce expenses are ones that we've all heard before. It's fuel, it's maintenance, and it's labor, right? They have been around for a long time. They're the easiest places using fleet management technology to reduce your costs. But at a time like this, it's definitely worth revisiting. In the areas of fuel, while the cost of fuel at the pump right now is actually lower than it's been in a long time, it's still one of the top costs for any organization running a fleet of vehicles, right? So easy ways to do that are to monitor idle times. You'd be shocked at how much your drivers actually idle. Optimizing the routes that they're taking. If you're not strict about the routes that they take today, it's worth looking into. You can save a lot of miles. Monitoring how the employees are driving, obviously help you reduce their speeding and their hard braking, rapid acceleration, little things that add to a better MPG on the vehicle. And third one, it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but given that we're in this COVID-19 situation, people are faced with limited resources, perhaps even a little more desperate than they normally might be, and that brings a risk of the potential for fuel card fraud. So if your organization uses fuel cards and you're not particularly strict with how you're using them, this is an area to look into, because GPS data can help really ensure that none of that fraud is taking place. So if a vehicle, if you know the capacity of the tank and the driver for that vehicle fills up more than the capacity, you know that he's probably filling up his own vehicle or a different gas can, for example. Or if the fuel card that's associated with the vehicle is not with the vehicle when it's used, you know that there's some potential fraud going on there as well. So easy ways to help you reduce fuel if you're using any sort of technology today. Maintenance and labor are the other two. Maintenance is something that I'm sure everyone listening to this has looked into at some point. But just creating an electronic maintenance schedule goes a long way, especially if you can set up some sort of automated reminders. If anyone out there is doing DVIR, driver vehicle inspection reports, that process in itself will ensure that if there's any vehicle defects, they're getting straight to the maintenance team immediately, so that you're not relying on the driver to remember to tell you there's something wrong with the vehicle. And that way you're keeping your vehicles safe to operate, not having any breakdowns on the road or any unnecessary downtime.
Right.
Also, for these big trucks, diagnostic trouble codes are a big thing too, right? And along that same line, if you have to wait for the driver to tell you the check engine light came on, you probably had more issues than you'd like. and being able to electronically know that truck 5's check engine light just came on and here's the code will certainly help you keep your maintenance costs lower by addressing issues faster.
For sure. And you gave us a lot of good data points there. I mean, mentioning the idling to save fuel, that's kind of a quick, easy data point to keep an eye on to track fuel costs. I want to dive a little bit more into your maintenance here. You mentioned setting up electronic maintenance schedules. You mentioned DVIRs. Are there any specific data points that fleet managers can look at to kind of set those schedules? Is that oil drains? Is it another type of maintenance bullet point, or how do you recommend they do that?
I mean, they can track just about any sort of PM that they need to for a vehicle. It can be anything. So the important data point there is just being able to see how often you're maintaining these vehicles and what it's costing you, right? Because at the end of the day, if you have some vehicles or trailers even that are costing you way too much or above average to maintain, you should probably consider selling them off. That's a great way to reduce your costs.
For sure. So let's say a fleet makes a change and they want to make sure it's impactful, or even if, let's say, everyone kind of grumbled about the ELD mandate and it took some time to implement, but the benefit now is that everybody has some telematics to some degree they can work on to start improving their operations. If I'm not so familiar with it, how far back do you think I should look at the data, or how do I identify a trend versus like something that happened, that operational difference between 3 months earlier and kind of what's going on now? Are there any ways that you look for trends in that data, or ways to track those data points once I make a change?
Well, hopefully the program you're using allows you to do trend analyses. So basically, you can just say that if I know that on March 1st, I made this change to our policy, to whatever it might have been, and I want to report today in April, I should be able to see over week the changes that took place and be able to see if I'm making a positive or negative impact on our costs, right?
Right.
That's the most basic version of that.
And I imagine, you mentioned fuel card tracking too, right? That should be an easy one that'll jump right out. If you run a fuel card usage and your operations have been pretty steady, even like February to March 2nd or whatever that 30-day period is, and then it's different in the last 30 days, that should jump right out, right?
Oh, absolutely should. And a lot of companies don't integrate their fuel cards with their telematics platform. I highly recommend doing that because you'd be shocked at what you might find.
And that's kind of a good segue into the next question. That seems like kind of an advanced telematics user case where they want to start connecting these different data points they have. Do you have any other maybe data connection and integration tips or advice for fleets as they're looking to optimize their operations? Anything you might have worked with in your customers, just kind of in general, that fleets should consider connecting those dots?
Well, I've got two areas that are definitely going to help with reducing costs. I don't know if I'd call them data points necessarily, but there's two things we haven't talked about yet. I realize that every organization is different, and that the the low hanging fruit that we just talked about, the fuel cost, the maintenance, the labor, which I didn't speak to, are all the easiest places. But if you've already done that and you're a power user of telematics or fleet management software, and you've already squeezed as much as you can out of those areas, and the last area that will have the most impact and is the biggest variable in your costs for your fleet is how many vehicles or trailers you have in operation, right? So if you can reduce the number of vehicles that are part of your overhead costs, you're significantly going to reduce your monthly costs. And the way to do that is using telematics data, right? We can see what utilization looks like on trailers or on trucks. We can see that over a given 30, 60, 90 or a year time frame, how many miles those vehicles have gone, the runtime on the engine, things of that nature to help you determine where that particular truck or trailer sits in the average for the rest of the fleet. To know that you may have 10 trucks and a handful of trailers that really aren't used very often and will not significantly or at all change the amount of revenue that you're able to bring in. So you might just consider selling those off. And there you go, as an easy way to reduce costs. And then the other one is, that we didn't talk about yet, is insurance premiums. So every single business out there, small business or larger, struggles with the cost of insurance. These are particularly risky to insure, and they need to do anything they can in order to keep those costs down. The newest tech to help do that, outside of what we've always been talking about, where just tracking driver behavior with telematics data, will help you get some sort of a reduction in your premium. The new golden ticket is in-cab cameras. Most popular thing right now, a lot of people are concerned that that gets into driver privacy rights and things like that. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure that your company-owned vehicles and assets are protected and that your drivers come home safe every day, and cameras are the best way to do that. And the data points that you can, once you put a policy together of some kind, data points you can look at and prove to your insurance provider to help you get that discount are reductions in distracted driving incidents. You can actually see if the driver is distracted or not, and it counts all that stuff. A reduction in stop sign or red lights being run, increases in seatbelt compliance. You know, all you need is the video proof that your driver wasn't at fault for one accident to make all the difference for your insurance premium and for the bottom line for your company as well. Those are a couple other ones that are pretty big.
Right, for sure. And we've seen a huge spike in interest in video, in-cab video and video telematics within our own readership. Every time we talk about it, it just kind of goes through the roof, and there's lots of interest. When you say that, how much of that is in-cab driver facing and how much of it is outward facing? The drop in that bad behavior.
I don't know the exact numbers for the adoption rates of one or the other, but I can tell you that the overall, the more popular of the two is the outward facing, because people are concerned about looking at the driver. But the insurance premiums are not going to be reduced by looking forward. The only thing that looking forward does is help you in accident recreation and knowing who is at fault. It doesn't help you actually prevent somebody from getting in an accident and coaching their driver behavior, right? So, you know, the in-cab cameras that we offer, for example, do both. They're forward-facing, driver-facing, and they also actually are a 360-degree view. They have a left camera and a right camera, so you can see everything that's happening around the vehicle.
Right. Very cool. And when we've talked to fleets, we've heard similar reports, but you know, just as we're talking on video cameras here, it's kind of becoming ubiquitous in the industry for sure, and lots of interest and lots of benefit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Lots of great ideas here, and I'm sure we will talk with you soon.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ryan.